I went to Pax East for the first time ever to see what kind of upcoming games are coming out. And for MMORPGs, not much. It's kind of, there's a WoW panel. But that's what we're going to kind of talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that was there. There was a really interesting WoW panel that kind of revealed a pretty big reveal about what their next remix is going to be, as well as some talk about what's coming with Soulframe, including a lot more combat gameplay that's looking a lot crisper and a lot more interesting. And then, of course, Dune had a gigantic sandworm there. And a lot of people playing it. The biggest reveal for MMO fans from Pax East is probably going to be the formal announcement of Legion Remixed. This was part of a larger WoW panel, kind of the same as the version that EverQuest did last year's Pax East, that looked at the evolution of the game over 2 decades. Though this one got like the whole, big panel, the main theater, whereas the EverQuest one did not, which hurts my soul a little bit, but it's understandable. It still hurts deep in my Norathian soul here. The Legion Remix announcement came hand in hand with a feature announcement for Legion Remix. They will be including world tiers like Diablo. That is, full-on difficulty tiers for the entire world, which has potential to actually solve a major problem with modern WoW. World difficulty and enemies are paper thin and perfunctory, making the world itself a quick pass through of the game to get to the actual game, which is WoW's end game, the grind, which might be some of the silliest design, but also the most enduring design for MMOs. The downside here for me is this is only currently being added to Legion Remix, but hopefully WoW will copy Lord of the Rings Online, which started with landscape difficulty levels for open world on legendary servers, only then to add it to all servers. Not that World of Warcraft has ever copied anyone before. They're also finally adding housing, which was another part of the panel that mostly just reiterated a commitment to making this feature evergreen, and another lateral form of progression, which of course is also not something copied from any other MMOs. I'm sure WoW won't do anything crazy with the monetization of a housing system. No one's ever done that with housing before, after all. And just a fun little tidbit here from the panel that I don't think has been reported on as much, and it's not like super newsworthy, it's just kind of amusing. But as they were going through all this, like the history of Azeroth, all of the expansions and everything that's changed, they singled out stuff like Wrath of the Lich King, Burning Crusade, Cataclysm, of course, Mists of Pandaria, and they talked a ton about Legion, obviously, with, the Legion remix coming up. But then they kind of just skipped over Shadowlands, and then they went straight to Dragonflight and the War Within, and talking even about future expansions. So yeah, just still pretending that the Shadowlands didn't really exist in an official panel was kind of an amusing thing that was part of PAX. WoW's announcement was short, but an equally short part of the weekend was a new gameplay trailer for Soulframe. In a short snippet of the hour-long Digital Extremes panel, which largely focused on Warframe and tried to get people to get excited for TennoCon in July, the trailer showed off a ton of combat, which looked actually pretty damn solid, alternating between melee, throwing knives into the faces of your enemies, and even using magic. For the game still being in pre-alpha especially, it looked kinda good, and definitely more grounded from the more fluid and fast combat of Warframe. Outside of the trailer, they also showed off a boss fight with their self-described, legally distinct from Lord of the Rings Witch King, which looked really engaging, with a whole set of ads and everything that you have to deal with and contend with. Although for more MMO bona fides, I would have loved to see them not taking this on alone. And that leads into a fear, like the next game we'll talk about, whether or not this is still an MMO or something MMO-like remains an open question. When it was announced in 2022, it was explicitly titled an MMORPG. More recent descriptions of the game from Digital Extremes call it an all-new, free-to-play, open-world adventure that promises immersive, cooperative experience. It should be noted that the same listing from that website for Warframe also doesn't call it an MMO, but rather an online action game. This follows the trend of games initially being announced as MMOs and then playing a little fast and loose and drifting away from that title, like another game that'll actually be launching soon, Dune Awakening. The once announced MMO turned online survival multiplayer with sharding worlds and hundreds of player PvP zones had a major LAN event that coincided with their closed beta weekend at PAX. They had one of the largest booths at PAX and had one of the coolest looking designs with the giant sandworm, perhaps only challenged by Larian having a freaking castle with a nautiloid on it. The whole purpose of this booth was to get people to play and try Dune Awakening this weekend, both at PAX and at home where a closed beta was going on. And while nothing big or crazy was announced during PAX, I checked out the booth a few times and it had one of the largest lines to test it out, with huge bays of PCs to try it. The chatter around it also seemed generally positive. I've already played and reviewed Dune Awakening myself, when putting about 20 hours or so into the game in the exact same review copy that they were basically playing, and that anyone who played the beta also played. And I think it's the kind of game where you need more than like 15 or 30 minutes to get a handle on how the game feels. And so if you want more info on that experience that I had, I've linked down in the description below my first impressions of Dune Awakening, the good, the bad, and what I'm expecting. Because I'd already played it, I didn't feel any need to jump in and do another test drive and thought other people would be more beneficial to them. But I did get to play another game that actually did seemingly start out as an MMO, at least for a very short time. Crimson Desert, the game that we all thought was a little bit strange if they're going to be making a direct competitor to their own MMO of Black Desert Online. Well, turns out they're not. It's an RPG, and basically get thrown the fuck around all over the place and hit walls and stuff by a giant Viking. And you can find out more about my experience playing that game in this video right here, as well as a little bit of talk about Borderlands 4 and an upcoming British zombie survival game. But if I want to point to my highlight of PAX East, it was actually getting to see the independent developer that made Aaron Shore. That was just a quick meeting, getting to say hi and take a couple pictures, but just getting to see them with a table out there at PAX East after their whole debut of their early access title was just something very special. My name is Edward Flynn. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day.